Have you ever watched someone make the single biggest mistake of their life, and they don't even know it? That's what happened on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning on the 22nd floor of the sleek, glass-plated tower known as the Vega Building. The sun streamed through the windows, catching dust motes like tiny, suspended diamonds. The office hummed with the low sound of computers and expensive coffee. It was just another day at Apex Consulting. Until it wasn't. The mistake was made by a woman named Lena Thorne, and the person she was making it with was the one person she should have feared the most. Lena, the newly appointed CEO, walked through the cubicles with a purpose. Her heels clicked a staccato rhythm on the polished concrete, a sound that made heads dip lower over their work. She was smiling a shark smile, and she was heading straight for Sofia Martinez's desk. To everyone, Sofia was invisible. Not because she was quiet, but because she was the foundation. The one who arrived first, left last, whose work was flawless. She was in her late 40s, with kind eyes and a stillness that suggested deep waters. While Lena wore power like a cheap perfume, Sofia carried it silently, in the set of her shoulders, in the quiet certainty of her work. Lena stopped. She placed a perfectly manicured hand on the divider of Sofia's cubicle. Her voice was cold, a blade wrapped in silk. "Sofia, a word. In my office. Now." The entire floor went quiet. You could hear the coffee machine gurgle in the distance. Sofia simply looked up, removed her glasses, and nodded. No fear. No surprise. Just a slow, deliberate motion. She followed Lena's retreating back, past rows of wide-eyed colleagues, into the corner office with the breathtaking view. Lena didn't sit. She stood behind her desk, a silhouette against the sprawling city skyline. "We're streamlining, Sofia," she said, her voice dripping with a false, corporate regret. "The new board is looking for a fresher energy. Your skill set, while adequate, is no longer aligned with our future direction." Sofia stood silently, listening. Lena gained confidence, the mask of regret slipping. "Effective immediately. Your position is terminated. Security will escort you out. Hand over your keycard and company laptop." This was it. The moment. Lena Thorne was firing Sofia Martinez. She relished the power, the control. She thought this was her grand opening move, establishing her reign. She had no idea. She had absolutely no idea that she was standing in an office she did not own, in a building she did not control, firing the one person who held the deed to it all. Sofia didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just looked at Lena for a long, tense moment. A look that was unreadable. Was it pity? Was it anger? It was something deeper, something colder. Then, she did the strangest thing. She smiled. A small, faint, almost imperceptible smile. Her voice was quiet but clear as ice. "As you wish, Miss Thorne." She placed her keycard and laptop on the desk. She turned and walked out, past the staring eyes, her head held high. A security guard, looking awkward, followed her to her desk where she collected a single plant and her worn leather handbag. The last thing the office saw was Sofia stepping into the elevator, the doors closing on her calm, composed face. Lena Thorne watched from her office window, a victorious smirk playing on her lips. She thought she had won. She thought she had removed a piece of the old guard. She didn't know she had just lit a fuse. And the explosion was going to be magnificent. To understand the true scale of Lena's mistake, you have to rewind 25 years. The Vega Building wasn't always a glittering corporate fortress. It was a rundown, half-vacant structure in a neighborhood people said was up and coming. A young man named Carlos Martinez saw something else. He saw potential. He saw sturdy bones under the grime. He was a contractor, a man who built things with his hands and his heart. He scraped together every penny, took a loan that gave his wife nightmares, and he bought the building. It was his American dream, made of brick and mortar. His daughter, Sofia, was a teenager then. She spent her after-school hours sweeping concrete dust, answering his ancient rotary phone, learning the value of a square foot and the weight of a mortgage payment. Carlos didn't just teach her about drywall and plumbing. He taught her about integrity. "You own something," he'd say, his hands rough and strong. "You are responsible for it.
For the people in it.
It's a covenant." They worked for a decade. Slowly, they renovated. They found good tenants. The neighborhood did come up. And the Vega building became a solid, quiet source of income. A legacy. Then, Carlos got sick. The kind of sick that drains bank accounts along with hope. The medical bills were a tidal wave, threatening to wash away everything he'd built. Sophia, by then a sharp, diligent young woman, saw the fear in her father's eyes. The fear of leaving his family with nothing. So, she made a deal. A secret deal. She would use her salary, every bonus, every spare cent, to buy the building from him. On paper. This way, the money from the sale would shield him, would pay for his care. And the legacy would stay in the family. She would become the landlord. Carlos resisted. He didn't want to burden her. But Sophia was her father's daughter, stubborn, responsible, fierce in her loyalty. She insisted. The papers were signed in his hospital room. Carlos passed the title to his daughter, along with the covenant. He died peacefully 6 months later, knowing his dream was safe. Sophia was now the owner. But she didn't change. She didn't put on fancy clothes. She saw the building not as a trophy, but as a trust. She managed it quietly, through a small, discreet firm. The tenants rarely saw her. They just knew that repairs were handled quickly, rents were fair, and the owner was a ghost of impeccable integrity. Her professional life was separate. She climbed the corporate ladder at Apex Consulting the hard way, through competence. She had no desire to flaunt her private wealth. So, for 15 years, Sophia Martinez lived two lives, the unassuming senior analyst at Apex and the anonymous, powerful owner of the very building Apex leased 10 floors of. She paid rent to her own management company. She sat in meetings where executives complained about the greedy, faceless landlord. She would just nod, take notes. It was a secret born out of privacy. A card she never imagined she would need to play. Until the day Lena Thorne decided to make an example of the quiet woman in the cubicle. She fired her landlord. And she had no idea. The first hour after the firing, Sophia felt nothing. It was like emotional shock. She drove home. She placed the small potted philodendron from her desk on her kitchen windowsill. She made tea. She sat. Then it hit her. Not the anger first. The betrayal. The profound, personal disrespect of it all. She had given Apex 15 years. She was a load-bearing wall. And Lena Thorne had come in with a sledgehammer, thinking she was just knocking out some old drywall. Sophia thought of her father. He'd be quiet for a long time, his face grim. Then he'd say something simple. A person who doesn't respect the work doesn't respect the worker. And a person like that doesn't deserve the roof over their head. The roof over their head. The phrase echoed. It landed with a soft, final click. She looked out the window. The Vega building was a sliver of light on the skyline. Her building. The place where she had just been publicly dismissed. A cold, calm clarity began to replace the hurt. This wasn't just about a job. This was about a fundamental breach. Lena Thorne had violated the covenant of dignity within the very walls that person owned. Sophia's mind, sharp from years of analysis, turned toward strategy. She walked into her home office. From a locked box, she pulled out a file labeled Vega. Inside was the deed. Her name.
She spread it on the desk.
She looked at the Apex lease, at the morality clause she had insisted on years ago. Could firing a long-term employee in a public, humiliating manner be considered conduct becoming a nuisance? Could it bring the property into disrepute? A plan, dark and elegant, began to form. It wasn't screaming rage. It was quiet, absolute reclamation. Lena Thorne wanted to show power. Sophia would show her what real power looked like. Power from a deed. Power that was patient, legal, and utterly inescapable. She picked up her phone. She didn't call a friend to cry. She called her property management firm. Her voice was steady, calm. "Michael? It's Sophia Martinez." "Yes," the owner. I need a full review of the Apex Consulting lease, effective immediately, and schedule a meeting with legal. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. On the other end, Michael was stunned. In 15 years, maybe 3 direct calls. Of course, Ms. Martinez. Is there a specific concern? Oh, yes, Sophia said, a hint of a faint smile in her voice. The new CEO is creating a hostile environment. She may be in breach of our covenant. Let's find out for sure. She hung up. The game was on. The next morning, Sophia walked into a law firm. Not as the Apex analyst, but as a principal. She met with Eleanor Hartman, a sharp attorney who had represented the building for decades. Sophia laid it out. Factually. The tenure. The firing. The audio recording from her habit of taping meetings for notes. She played it. Lena's cold voice filled the room. Asterisk, your skill set, while adequate, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Asterisk, then Sophia's calm reply. Asterisk, as you wish, Miss Thorne. Asterisk. Eleanor's face broke into a slow, wolfish smile. That, she said, is not a standard termination. That is a personal dismissal. A humiliation. This is gold. The plan solidified. They wouldn't sue for wrongful firing. That was a small battle. Sophia was aiming for the kingdom. They would use Lena's arrogance as the lever to break the lease. We start with a formal notice of breach, Eleanor said. We cite the clause. We demand remediation. And if they don't, Sophia asked, then we begin eviction proceedings. Against Apex Consulting. For all 10 floors. Evicting a major tenant was financial suicide for most landlords. But Sophia owned the building outright. No mortgage. She had savings. Patience. A principle. Do it, she said, her voice unwavering. Serve it to Lena Thorne personally. And CC the entire board. 3 days later, a courier arrived at Apex. Lena opened the legal envelope in her office. She read it. Her face drained of color. The notice cited a material breach. It described the firing as creating a hostile environment for other tenants. It demanded remediation. Failure to comply would mean eviction. She called the management firm, furious. This is outrageous. I want to speak to your client. The voice on the phone was calm. Our client's identity is confidential, Ms. Thorne. Consult your counsel. Lena panicked. Her lawyers were baffled. The clause was bizarre, but it was there. And they had the recording. They're arguing you created a hostile environment as a tenant, her lawyer said, worried. If a judge agrees, we're tied up in court for months, with an eviction hanging over us. The stock price will sink. What's the remediation? Lena snapped. The lawyer scanned the letter. It doesn't specify. Satisfactory remediation is subjective. It likely means reversing the action that caused the breach. A heavy silence. Reversing the action. Rehiring Sophia Martinez. Lena laughed. A high, brittle sound. Never. That would make me look weak. The operations head spoke quietly. Lena, the cost of fighting this, of relocating, could be $30 million. Is your authority worth $30 million to the board? The question was toxic and real. She had 14 days. News of the notice spread. The stock price dipped. The board summoned Lena. She joined a video call, forcing calm. The board members did not smile. Explain, the chairman said, his voice like stone. Lena launched her defense, painting the landlord as greedy, the employee as a poor performer. A board member named Cynthia Walsh cut her off. We've received a separate package. It contained a transcript of an audio recording. Would you like me to read your necessary realignment dialogue, Miss Thorne? Lena's blood ran cold. They had sent it to the board. The chairman's face was granite. We did not hire you for personal squabbles that jeopardize our tenancy. Your actions are unprofessional. They reflect poorly on the company. It's my leadership style. Lena argued, desperate. We wanted profitable change, Cynthia Walsh said coldly. Not change that results in multi-million-dollar lawsuits. She looked at Lena with utter disdain. You have 13 days left. Your sole priority is to resolve this. Satisfy the landlord. Make this go away. Whatever it takes. Do you understand? It was an order. Yes, Lena said, hollow. The call ended. Lena sat in the silence. She had to appease the mysterious landlord. There was only one path. She had to rehire Sofia Martinez. The humiliation burned. But the alternative was oblivion. Gritting her teeth, she got Sofia's number. She called. It went to voicemail. Her voice was artificially warm. Sofia? Hi, it's Lena Thorne. A misunderstanding. Please call me back. Sofia deleted the message. She wasn't ready. Let her sweat. For 3 days, Lena's calls went unanswered. Finally, Sofia replied to an email. I will meet you.
Tomorrow.
11 a.m. The ground floor coffee shop in the Vega building. Not your office. The location was a masterstroke. Neutral ground, but on her property. The next day, Sofia arrived early. She was calm, composed. Lena rushed in, strained, her veneer cracked. Sofia. Thank you for meeting me. Sofia gestured to a chair. Sit. Lena sat, clutching her bag. I owe you a profound apology. It was a mistake. We want you back. Immediately. Vice President of Client Strategy. A 50% increase. A hardship bonus. It was a staggering offer. Lena leaned forward, believing money was the hook. Sofia placed her teacup down softly. She looked Lena directly in the eyes.
No.
The word hung in the air. Lena blinked, stunned. Is it the title? We can negotiate. I don't want your job, Lena, Sofia said, her voice low and even. I don't want your money. I don't want to work for you. Then what do you want? Lena's voice rose, then dropped to a strained whisper. What will make this go away? Tell me what the landlord wants. Sofia leaned forward. The light caught the lines of wisdom around her eyes. You still don't get it. You're asking the wrong question. You're looking for a transaction.
A bribe.
This was never about a transaction. Then what is it about? Lena hissed. It's about the covenant, Sofia said. You broke it. You treated a person with no dignity in a place that should be safe. You thought power was about who could hurt whom. Real power is about who is responsible for whom. Lena stared, utterly confused. I don't know what you're talking about. Just tell me what to do to fix the lease. Sofia took one last sip. She stood. She looked down at Lena, small in the chair. You can't fix it. Some breaches are too deep. The notice stands. You have 8 days. I suggest you start looking for a new office. She walked out. Lena sat alone, defeated, and still in the dark. The 8 days passed in a blur of futile activity. The board ran out of patience. On the morning of the 14th day, the chairman called. His voice was final. The board has voted. Your inability to resolve this self-created crisis is a failure. You are terminated. Clean out your desk. Lena was fired. She was escorted out by security, a mirror of what she'd done to Sofia. Karma, the employees whispered. But the eviction clock had struck 0. The next document was a lawsuit. The news hit the press. Apex faces eviction over hostile conduct clause. The story was bizarre, captivating. Who was this landlord? Apex decided to fight. The case went to a preliminary hearing. Their lawyers argued the clause was unenforceable. The landlord acted in bad faith. Then, Eleanor Hartman stood in the courtroom. Your Honor, the connection is personal. To demonstrate, my client wishes to be identified. The judge nodded. State your client's name. Eleanor turned toward the back of the courtroom. Every head followed her gaze. The doors opened, and Sofia Martinez walked in. She walked calmly down the aisle, past the stunned Apex team, and sat at the plaintiff's table. A whisper rippled. That's the fired employee. Eleanor's voice was clear as a bell. Your Honor, the legal owner of the Vega building and the plaintiff in this eviction action is my client, Ms. Sofia Elena Martinez. A collective gasp. The Apex CEO's jaw dropped. Their attorney fumbled. The puzzle pieces slammed together. The clause. The recording. The refusal. The fired employee was the landlord. Eleanor continued. Apex, as a tenant, publicly humiliated and terminated the property owner on her own premises. The breach is unprecedented in its arrogance. The judge, an older woman, looked from the shocked team to the serene Sophia. She removed her glasses. I've seen a lot, but this is a first. The plaintiff has demonstrated a profound ethical failure by the tenant. Eviction proceedings may move forward. I suggest a settlement. The optics of a trial are unlikely to improve for the defendant. It was over. With one revelation, Apex's case crumbled. The gavel fell. The fallout was swift. The story exploded. Apex settled within a week. They would vacate. They would pay a penalty of 2 years' rent. They would issue a public apology to Sophia. The financial and reputational hit was enormous. They moved to a lesser building, a symbol of their fall. Lena Thorne was blacklisted. A cautionary tale. And the Vega building? Once Apex moved out, Sophia didn't rush. She renovated. She reached out to the smaller, long-term tenants, the design firm, the nonprofit, the architects. She offered them the new space at below-market rates. She created a hub for small businesses, a childcare facility, an artist gallery. The cold, corporate energy was replaced by a vibrant, collaborative hum. It became what her father dreamed, a community, a responsible legacy. Sophia herself changed. She sold the management firm and took over personally. She was present.
Kind.
Tenants knew they could talk to her. One day, a young startup owner asked her, "Weren't you scared to take on a giant like that?" Sophia smiled warmly. "I was. But I was more scared of letting a bad principle stand. My father taught me that when you own something, you're responsible for the people in it. That responsibility means sometimes you have to protect them even from themselves." The lesson was passed on. The covenant continued. Sophia would sit in the new rooftop garden looking out. She had honored her father's dream. She had protected his legacy. Not just the brick and mortar, but the idea. Power should build people up, not break them down. She had not sought revenge from hatred. She had enacted justice from responsibility. And she found a peace no corporate title could provide. The quiet woman in the cubicle had become the most powerful person in the story, not by climbing a ladder, but by owning the ground it stood on. So, what's the real lesson? It's not just don't mistreat employees. It's deeper. We confuse loudness with strength, arrogance with power. Lena's power was borrowed, temporary. Sophia's was rooted in something solid. Ownership. Of property, of integrity, of legacy. Her power was silent, patient, built on real value. The story teaches us about hidden leverage. Your leverage might not be a secret deed. It might be your knowledge, your relationships, your ethics. It is the thing you own that no one can take. Nurture it. Protect it. It teaches us about the covenant of dignity. In any relationship, there's an unspoken pact of respect. Lena shattered it casually. She learned that violating that covenant can unravel the very foundations of a deal. Dignity is not soft, it's structural. Finally, it shows us the best revenge is not destruction, it's reclamation. Sophia didn't want to destroy Lena. She wanted to reclaim her peace, her property, her father's vision. She removed the toxic element and built something better. Her victory was in the thriving community that rose from the conflict. So when someone tries to make you feel small, disposable, pause. Look at your hidden leverage. Remember your covenant. Your power may be quiet, patient, unseen. But like the foundations of a well-built tower, it can withstand any storm. And sometimes, it can even reclaim the very ground the arrogant stand upon. This was the story of a woman fired by the person who owned nothing and evicted by the woman who owned everything that mattered.